Today I'm turning back the clock to revisit PlayStation 2 games I either never played or barely remember why I stopped playing in the first place. No nostalgia bias here. I gave the next 3 PlayStation 2 games exactly 60 minutes to impress me, 1 hour, 1 shot. If they deliver, they get accepted as everlasting, all-time great, super-duper games. If not, well, they are done for good. In the next episode, a forgotten squad-based shooter, a movie tie-in that might have bitten off more than it could chew, and finally, possibly one of the most talked about PlayStation 2 title ever released. But was it worth all the hype? Let's find out. There are games out there you just simply never forget. But X-Squad isn't necessarily one of them.
Right? Wrong.
Still, when I first heard about it back in the day, I felt a spark of excitement. The PlayStation 2 was still new, full of potential, and every new title seemed to promise just the future. X-Squad with its screenshots and descriptions looked exactly what I wanted at the time. A futuristic squad-based shooter, blending the tactical elements of Siphon Filter with the atmosphere of the Aliens movies. Although I only played it briefly back then. The protagonist of the game is Ash, commander of a special unit. Along with 3 squad mates, he embarks on various missions to stop a dangerous terrorist organization. The story is minimal and serves more as a backdrop for the action, but the opening cutscene and the character introductions were stylish, especially for a game released in 2000. Dialogue is sparse, but what we get is functional for the time and quickly sets the tone. The controls are a bit clunky and take some time getting used to. Camera handling, aiming, movement, they are clearly belong to that early 3D era. The crosshair slides around the screen, the cover system is inconsistent, and the movement isn't always precise, to say the least. Still, there is a strange charm to it. You can tell it tried to innovate. The command system that lets you give orders to teammates wasn't really revolutionary, but at the time it was rare to see something like that on consoles. By PS2 standards, X-Squad's visuals are modest, but they have a certain character. Enemy animations, world textures, lighting, everything is a bit sterile yet functional. The user interface is especially stylish, reinforcing the sci-fi vibe with its heads-up display design. Colors and typography just simply reflect the era. Even the main menu makes a statement with the glowing logos and the flickering screens. It was part of that early next-gen promise, if you know what I mean.
Hell yes.
The game is action-based, if that wasn't really obvious at first, but it flirts with tactical elements also. You can use your teammates, select from various weapons, manage health and armor. It's not that deep, but the combination was fresh at the time. Missions are linear, exploration is non-existent, but the levels are at least somewhat varied and focused on objectives. The first 10 minutes brought back strong feelings of nostalgia for me. The music, the menus, the characters, that awkward voice acting, everything evoked that era when every new game felt like a major event. And let's not forget the insane drum and bass soundtrack, the kind that even gets Ash busting a move mid-mission. At the same time, it also reminded me why I might have shelved it back then. It wasn't just quite as engaging as other titles released around the same period. The story is thin, but it includes the usual tropes: lost research facilities, experimental tech, an evil organization bent on world domination. The narrative moves forward mainly through short cutscenes, not particularly exciting, but just enough to keep things from feeling like pure, mindless shooting. And of course, the so-called boss fights. Basically over-the-top cartoons in disguise. I mean, look at these guys.
Interlopers, you die now.
You're lucky you made it this far. However, this is the end for you.
As I played, memories of early PS2 experience resurfaced. Back then, every game felt like a new world. Even clunky controls and empty corridors couldn't ruin the excitement. But now, it's hard to ignore the flaws. What once felt magical is now seen through a more critical lens. Back then, my heart guided me forward. Now, it's my experience that is doing the talking. There were a few moments where I genuinely thought my teammates had completely blocked my path and I was stuck for minutes, unable to move forward. The AI often gets stuck, but surprisingly, when you least expect it, they suddenly show up out of nowhere. Honestly, that's a surprisingly advanced behavior, especially considering that even modern games struggle with similar AI pathfinding issues. As for the squad mates, sometimes they are helpful, sometimes they are just not. I had mixed feelings about them, but more often than not, they ended up getting in the way. Thankfully, enemy AI isn't much better. Still, even with their limited intelligence, the game managed to be quite challenging, even on the easiest difficulty setting. Or maybe I just suck at this game very badly. The biggest issue were with the controls and the camera. I often felt like I wasn't controlling the character was rather controlling me. Aiming lagged at times, weapons didn't feel impactful, and squad commands occasionally failed to register. The game isn't bad, it just hasn't aged particularly well. Back then it might have been thrilling, but today it's harder to digest. The gameplay mechanics lack depth, the visuals feel dated, and the pacing is too slow for modern expectations. And yet, something about it just drew me right in. The squad management, the process of acquiring new weapons, that specific drive to press on through one more level, the game had an unexpected addictiveness to it, if you will. Despite its graphical and control flaws, the game's squad mechanics and upgrade system managed to hook me in. Surprisingly, I wanted to keep going, even after the hour was up. I just found myself tempted to dive also into the third mission. While I'm not sure if the enthusiasm would last for all 6 hours of gameplay, I would definitely go beyond at least one. X-Squad offers more than meets the eye, and it definitely deserves a first or a second chance. Enter The Matrix. A game I remembered more as a myth than a memory. I did not play it back in the day and I couldn't really recall it why. But now I had a mission. Give it 60 honest minutes and just see if it can earn a chance. No nostalgia, no expectations, just a ticking timer and a curious mind.
Let's dance.
The game starts with cinematic ambition, real movie footage, theatrical transitions, and that iconic green Matrix interface. You choose between either Ghost or Neo B, and I went with Ghost, mostly at random. And alright, hoping for to get Will Smith really mad again.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth!
There, the plot is vague at first, with radio briefings about objectives and some dialogue that tries to mimic the movie's depth, but just doesn't quite hit that hard. Controlling Ghost felt stiff right away, the character floats when moving, aiming is awkward, and switching between weapons isn't intuitive at all. There is a slow motion so-called focus ability that looks cool, mimicking bullet time, but the camera constantly fights you, which honestly just ruins most attempts at the style. Combat mostly involved shooting generic enemies while praying the controls would cooperate. Melee fight also exists, but mostly just feels random. The atmosphere tries to replicate the Matrix with lots of green filters and techno-industrial environments. By the way, ladies, why does the woman restroom have a couch? Tell me this.
What?
The game is cinematic, yes, but the textures are blurry, character models are lifeless, and the animations are robotic. It captures the tone indeed, but not the beauty. It aged harshly, honestly, even by PS2 standards.
It's been 84 years.
Third-person action with light stealth elements, that was the goal. But in practice, it is mostly linear corridors with repeated enemy encounters. No driving, no hacking, no major mechanics in the first hour at least. Just shooting, dodging, and occasionally watching cutscenes that feel disconnected from the gameplay. The intro cutscene pulled me in, I won't lie, but by the 10th minute mark, the immersion cracked. Controls were clunky, enemies were dull, and the level design is uninspired. I just kept hoping for a twist, a surprise, something to elevate it, but instead what I got was just more grey corridors and more sluggish shootouts. In the first hour, the story barely moved. I completed a few small objectives, took out faceless enemies and waited for something big. But the game never really delivered. No agents appeared, no recognizable movie moments happened, and nothing felt meaningful. While playing, I kept comparing it to the previous game I tested, X-Squad. That game was janky too, but had personality and a surprising addictiveness to it. Enter the Matrix, however, on the other hand, felt just hollow. There was style, sure, but how should I put it? There was no soul, no spark that made me want to keep going. The most memorable moment? Probably the awkward animations during combat, and maybe how serious the cutscenes try to be, despite everything else falling apart. Especially when the game decided it's not linear anymore out of nowhere, and I should have memorized the map and find my way back to the one door that leads to that very first hall in the game. So because of that, I just ran around for 10 minutes. There were no big glitches, no funny bugs, just a slow, oddly empty experience. Even when I fell through the wall, it was just part of a tedious section where I had to attempt 3 times the same platforming scenario due to the clunky controls. Enemies would sometimes just stand still. The AI wasn't aggressive or smart at all, it was just there.
Where do you get these guys?
The biggest issue though was the camera, a swirling, unpredictable mess that ruined any sense of flow. There was nothing game-breaking though, just consistently clunky gameplay across the board. At the end of the hour, I wasn't frustrated. I was actually rather just bored. And that's worse. The game showed little sign of evolution and it felt like the first hour was just treading water. I didn't get to any major gameplay shifts and nothing made me want to see what comes next. Enter the Matrix had ambition, that much is clear, but after 60 minutes I felt lucky I never spent time playing this back then. The controls are stiff, the pacing is slow and the promise of something deeper never materializes. A relic of its time, yes, definitely, but not one worth revisiting beyond curiosity.
Dodge this.
The Bouncer.
The name alone is enough to trigger flashbacks for anyone who owned a PlayStation 2 in the early 2000s. It was one of those titles everyone seemed to talk about, but not sure how many just really finished it. On my part, I never played it back then either, but it had that cinematic flair, Squaresoft's pedigree, and the promise of something wildly different. This was Square's bold foray into real-time action brawlers. And today, I was finally ready to see what the fuss was about. With 1 hour on the clock, I jumped in cold.
Oh yeah, that's how it always starts.
The game starts with an extremely vintage Squaresoft montage. Abstract, emotional, stylish. Characters flash on the screen before we even know who they are. But once it starts, you are in the shoes of a character called Sion, a bouncer at the bar called Fate, and things kick off immediately when a mysterious organization storms in and kidnaps our girl Dominique. No time wasted, you and your fellow bouncers vault and cow charge into action. The plot unfolds through long cutscenes and plenty of anime-style drama. Well, this is a 3D beat-em-up at heart. Think old school arcade brawler, but with camera angles and cutscenes that dream of being Final Fantasy. You move through small arenas, often watching more than playing. Controls are basic. Punch, block, kick, special attack. Movement feels heavy and targeting enemies can be a bit frustrating. The camera constantly gets in the way, especially when characters are bunched together. There are also a strange delay between inputs and action. It never feels fully responsive. Visually, it is impressive, the character models are detailed and the cutscenes are beautifully pre-rendered. I love when the style and graphic level of the gameplay is almost identical to the cutscenes. The game screams early 2000s style, leather belts, sleeveless jackets, glowing tattoos, all is there.
Nice dress.
The lighting is moody, the environments are dark and industrial. It's a game that it's very much in love with itself, but it kinda works. The bouncer mixes beat-em-up mechanics with a leveling system. After each fight you gain points to improve your 3 stats: power, life or defense. Before each fight you can also choose which of the 3 characters to follow, which adds a tiny bit of replayability. But most of the gameplay involves short fights between long cutscenes. It is stylish but ultimately shallow. It's more like a movie than a game, well, at least based on the first hour. The intro was effective. I felt pulled into something sleek and cinematic. The music, the character intros, the voice acting, it all felt bigger than the game itself. By the way, am I crazy, or is this music cue from Star Wars? Or was it a staple of Square? Or was it just a generic music cue of the time? Anyways, once the combat started, also the cracks appeared. It's a bit sluggish. The fights feel disconnected from the stakes the story tries to build, and with all the stiff camera angles, it's sometimes hard to even tell what is happening. Within the first hour, I saw a kidnapping, a rooftop battle, a train fight, explosions, boss fights, cyborg Dobermans, and lots of melodrama between the main characters. So there is a lot going on for 60 minutes already. Also, there are hints at a deeper conspiracy here, some techno-futuristic organization with Dominique at the center, but most of that unfolds in pre-rendered cutscenes with the player often reduced to a spectator. To be honest, if I want to be mean, the bouncer reminded me of every early PS2 tech demo. It looks like a game meant to sell the hardware rather, to show off lighting, models, motion blur. It also reminded me of games like Final Fight and Streets of Rage, but stripped of their arcade pace. It was much more like Tekken 3's Tekken Force minigame if you remember, with a bigger story written around it. There is a personality here though, enough to keep me intrigued. It felt like a playable anime plot, to be honest. One of the most funniest moments, I mean definitely the voice acting. It has that classic early 2000s English dub style.
I'm avenging my master. And I'm taking back Dominique!
You know, overacted, overly serious, unintentionally hilarious. It is totally over the top and because of that, totally awesome. Also, I'm pretty sure I saw that big dude from the X Squad making a cameo at the Fate bar. Is that coincidence or is it fate?
Sorry.
There were no major bugs, but definitely a lot of jank. The camera surely is your worst enemy. Some collision detection issues during fights as well. Enemies occasionally get stuck or pile up in corners. Oh, and do not forget to save at every 2 minutes the game offers. While it is annoying, it can definitely save you replaying 10 to 15 minutes of game time.
Damn. Game over.
Please just learn from my mistakes. Nothing game-breaking though about the bouncer, but definitely just clunky. After 1 hour, I still did not know if I was playing a game or watching one. But one thing for sure, I did not want to stop. Despite all the issues, the stiffness, the awkward combat, the chaotic angles, I was hooked. I wanted to know more about Dominique. Also, I wanted to punch more dudes on vehicles, rooftops, bars, gardens, hell, any location. It's not a polished game, but the entertainment value is undeniable. To sum it up, the bouncer is all style and very little substance. But sometimes, just sometimes, style is more than enough. It is a playable CG anime episode, if you will, with clunky controls and over-the-top drama. And honestly, I had a lot of fun with it. I probably won't be keep replaying it over and over again, but to have an attempt at finishing the game, for that, it made a lasting impression. And that's what this challenge is all about. Thanks for watching, guys. If you made it this far and haven't done so yet, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, let me know in the comments below, which PS2 game did you never get a chance to play back in the day but now wish you had? I was Gabe and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep gaming.